I've decided that if I'm ever going to finish this move, I have to stop dragging home old equipment, particularly stuff that I don't know how to use or maybe don't know if it even works or not. So I've resolved that sometime in the future I might consider that. Hey drivers, you know how things get crazy at the end of every big project? Well, that's where we were about a year ago. The house was for sale, the garage was still full of stuff, and I kept dragging home equipment. These were part of the deal we made for the crankshaft grinder. The grinder got its own trip, and now we've moved these. Chasing opportunity is hard work, but we're trading in our old comfort zone for a chance at the dream shop. Hey drivers, we've done it again. Last week I participated in an auction because I wanted this thing. It's a steel table, like the top is solid steel, over an inch thick, and everything else about it is 1/4 inch. It's got a couple of shelves in here reinforced by 1/4 inch angle iron and topped with 1/4 inch plate. I think this is going to be great not only to work on, but also to store really heavy accessories for the mill and the lathe and that kind of a thing. These collet chucks, vices, rotary tables, mag chucks, all that stuff is super heavy. You know, all the cool stuff is super heavy. And I'll need some place to store it. What I like about this bench is everything that I've said and the fact that it's completely closed. So it'll keep all that stuff relatively clean. So I was happy to get this. Apparently I was the only person who wanted it because I paid $25 for it. That was just the starting bid on the auction. And here it is. Maybe part of the reason that no one else bought it is because the top alone is 500 pounds. Just that piece of steel is 500 pounds. So with the rest of it, we're well over 1,000 pounds on this thing. And you know, you have to have a way to remove this stuff. Thankfully at this point we are well versed at hauling heavy equipment and winching it up onto the trailer and using the pallet jack and all that stuff. So this isn't the kind of thing that you're going to put in the pickup bed of a truck and have any way to get it back out again, right? That's the thing that I have to think about when I go to pick stuff up at these auctions, is how am I going to get it out of the truck, or how am I going to get it off of the trailer, and I have to load it in such a way that I can do that. Anyway, but it didn't stop there. There were a couple of other things that I was interested in, like this optical comparator. Basically, it's shadow puppets to take precision measurements. You put a thing here, you mark wherever you are, or you reference it on here or its shadow, and then you can watch how far it moves on a dial indicator. You have 2 axes for measurement since it is a 2-dimensional image, right? But it seemed really cool and the price was right, so I picked that up. We got a few things after the fact. This is another cast iron table, like the longer one that we already have. These things are used, or were used, for drill presses, where there might be more than one drill press on the same frame. And so for production work, you drill one hole, slide the thing down, drill the next, and they make great workspaces. This one happened to come with a pretty hefty vise. But it didn't stop there. We ended up with this thing, which is a parts washer. We're looking at the back end of it here, and it is way more of a parts washer than I was thinking. Let me show you. First of all, it runs on 460 volts. That's pretty hefty. It's got these pneumatic cylinders here that open the thing for you. So it needs a lot of power and a decent air system to run. I've got the cylinders disconnected. So there you go. It's got 3 bays. So it's a 3-stage thingy. I haven't learned everything about it, not even close, but those racks there go up and down to move it through the fluid and be more effective. And there's like jet thingies in there. It'll do drying. I'm not sure if this model has any ultrasonic feature or not, but way more of a parts washer than I was really bargaining for. So I don't know if I'm going to get this thing hooked up and running or not. I think it may take way more power than I'm going to have available. I don't know. We'll take it up there and check it out. What I've been able to demonstrate throughout this process is something I think we already know, and that is people will support you in a goal to which you have visibly committed. I was talking to the site lead that was representing the owner in this auction that happened, and he kind of took me under his wing. I was telling him about what we're doing with Haptic Garage and about the move and putting together a machine shop and wanting to solve problems for people and so on. And it spoke to him because he had been in business as an aerospace machinist, had his own shop for a while. It all fell apart because investors got skittish at one point, but he had a real operation going. And so he wanted to help the little guy that's just trying to get started. Here's what I mean by all of this. He goes, you got to see this thing. Come over here. I'm like, okay. And what he shows me is this. This is a CNC lathe. Like, never in a million years did I think I would be shopping for any kind of CNC anything. But he said it didn't sell. They're just going to throw it away. I bet you could get it for $100. Well, he was right about all of that, except one thing. I got it for $50. So here it is. I don't know how to use it, but supposedly it's in an easy programming language. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it, but in that moment, getting that kind of attention, I just felt like I'm supposed to do this. Just figure it out. And so made the deal, loaded the thing up. I got it this far. Now we got to get it up north. In fact, I just left it on the trailer. Why unload this one, right? So what I hope to do in this trip is get the parts washer on here as well. This is a curious piece. These are auto feeders, drill heads here. They're fixed RPM, so I imagine these two are different RPMs, but they just kind of run themselves. And this was one of those $20 things where, you know, if I part it out and fund other projects, like, I don't know that I have a use for this, then okay, I'll take it and throw it on the trailer. So we got this weird dual drill head thing too. All right, there it is. There's our next task, is to winch this parts washer up onto the trailer. And then we're going to take a look and see where we are. I want to make sure that we're safe and not overloading. Whoa, easy there, buddy. Things are going great, but I always like to take a look. Can't always see what's happening. I just look at that thing. What am I going to do with this? This is the lid for a skimmer. This is the vat. So the fluid flows in here, and the aqueous solution that you want flows out down there. Of course, the oil is going to stay up here on the top. This band of steel rotates down through it, and when it comes up, a little bit of oil sticks to it and gets scraped off here. And then goes down this channel, presumably to be collected. That's the part that I don't see, is how is all of that collected? Maybe it's missing a part, but pretty cool. That would keep things fresh. When you have an aqueous solution in a parts washer, it'll go rancid. It'll get really nasty. And one of the things that'll speed that up is to have a film of oil across the top. They thought of everything on this parts washer, I would assume. It's built like a tank. Oh. Truck seems to be sitting fine. Trailer seems to be sitting fine. I really don't think we're in trouble here, but I like to look at the axles to make sure that they still have that crown in the middle. A severely overloaded axle will be inverted, and that's probably already damaged once something like that happens. These look good. Our springs are not inverted. They still have that curve to them. Not much, but still a little bit of curve there. So we're in good shape. This is what it looks like when I get out over my skis. This Ramco parts washer. I had no idea it was this involved of a machine. I knew it ran on 460 volts. We have the wherewithal, I think, to put that together, but at that voltage, this parts washer has so much going on that it draws 40 amps, which is going to be a lot coming off of a single phase source through a converter. It's just, that's the bottom line, is this is going to be a lot. There's a whole lot going on here that I'm going to have to learn about. But this thing goes for many thousands of dollars. I got it for $140. And if we figure out how to use it, it's going to be pretty awesome for washing VW cases. So it's probably worth a go. Either way, I'm stuck with it for now, even if I have to sell it to somebody who knows what they're doing. We're in the process of unloading. So let's see if we can come down the hill without coming off the ramp. I had to lean over that far because we got to clear this post here. Telling you, Rhodey, you don't want that. Let's see what happens. The big one is left on the trailer, and it's going to go right here next to our LeBlanc. I imagine it'll come all the way out to here and about over to here. So a little bit of room left for the mill drill that needs to come in, the air compressor, another workbench, more stuff than we're going to fit, honestly. But for today, we got to get this thing off the trailer. This is a CNC lathe. It will either be the beginning or the end of my foray into CNC. Never really intended to end up with something like this, but this is an old one from 1986. Supposedly it works. Supposedly it's easy to program. So we'll see. Probably just kind of a starter machine. Learn from it and let someone else have it. It seems like a pretty serious machine. Uses 5C collets, and that's about all I know. It's a Mayano GN4. Anybody know something about these? Let me know. Anyway, we're gonna roll it down the hill. It's about 2,500 pounds. So to support the bed here that's just expanded steel, I've put this plywood that I got off of packing crates. Just kind of dismantled them there in the parking lot and laid them out here. And it's good, but it's sinking into it a little bit, which is making it very difficult to roll. So we're using this come along. Just a little bit by little bit. I have it hooked up to the winch, so if it ever takes off, it won't go anywhere. So I have to keep giving it slack with the winch. And come back over to the come along. Not the fastest thing, but it'll work. That's what we need. Hey, there she is. That was a load of work. Hey drivers, this is a big one. We've really got to make this load count. We're going to be down to the workbench, the welder, and the air compressor. This is the day that the mill drill finally goes. Like, this is a big deal. We have it down on the ground on its wheels, I've lowered the center of gravity as much as I can, and I think we're ready to winch it up onto the trailer. Also taking the parts washer, that's all cleaned up and disassembled and everything. We're going to take as much of what's on this shelf as possible, particularly the heavy stuff. We're going to place it inside this heavy steel table along with this extra arbor press. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I just got it real cheap. And the remainder of these cylinder heads. We took these out of the big cargo trailer for weight distribution purposes. And now I'd like to take them up there. My hardware jars, I'm reluctant to take those up on this trip. So I think those are going to stay. And I think the lubricants are going to stay. But that shouldn't be a big deal to move in the next go-round. Here's where I think we're going to put a dent in things. This cast iron table is going, the VW engine stand is staying just in case. I really hope I don't need it at this stage, but that'll be on the last load. And as much of this heavy stuff back here as we dare to take. I would really love to get all of this done in just one more load after this one, because the sooner the property is empty with nothing but the Mosey home and Dweezil, the sooner I can list it and sell the thing and schedule a closing date and we can move on. I have no income right now. YouTube doesn't count. That just goes to Haptic Garage anyway, but it's not enough to make any kind of a difference. So really, functionally, I have zero income right now. We need to get up there so I can resolve that issue. Now, this was all part of the plan and I budgeted for it, but it means that the clock is ticking. I can't, like before when I was still working, I could push things out on the timeline because it actually benefited me a little bit. It allowed me to save a little bit more money in preparation for this stage. But now that we're in it, like I said, the clock is ticking. We can't push things out. We got to get this done as soon as possible. We'll get up there, we'll start selling off extra stuff, we'll renovate the rental property and get that rented, and of course I'm going to get a day job that at least provides benefits and leaves me with some creative energy to work for y'all. So well, all the wheels are in motion, right? We've got to get this thing going, and I think this is a pivotal day depending on how much stuff we can load on that trailer. It's been a while since I built this stand, but I'm pretty sure I planned for this. So I made it low enough that I could slide under the garage door on this day, the day sometime in the future that this mill drill would be leaving this space. So let's see if I got it right. Give myself a little room here. I think that's going to do it. I think I did a very similar thing with the air compressor. I think I have to take the air filter off of the air compressor to fit it under the door opening, but there it is. We're all right. The track of this thing is pretty much the width of my ramps. It's just too close for comfort. So I've added some better than nothing guardrails here. Plus, I want to make sure that the chain doesn't do that. I don't want this to be able to turn. Okay, I may be overthinking this a bit, but once I got it teed up to the ramps and ready to go, I had a pretty clear vision in my mind of this thing tipping over. So hopefully we've prevented that from becoming a reality. Let's go ahead and winch it on up. Come up a little bit further here and get the thing up on blocks, but I wanted to show you this. These are swivel casters that I used to think were a good idea. Now I only think they're half a good idea. Just on one end, swivel casters are nice, But on the other end, I like rigid casters now. It's just easier to steer a big heavy piece of equipment that way. Also, I like metal casters instead of the urethane coated ones. I wish I had figured that out sooner. They're just easier to roll on concrete. But what I've done here is modified a bolt. I welded a washer under here, and that just stops the swivel casters from swiveling. What I could have done is bought rigid casters and swapped them out, except that they'd be going this way. See, this is the long side of the plate, and this is the short side. So that's a design issue. I don't want the mill drill to go that way. Like, I'd have to put a rigid there and swivels on the other end, or vice versa. Then this would be going sideways. So this is what I chose to do. Just keep the casters I have. I put bolts down both sides on both rear casters, and it seemed to work well. It kept it straight, at least the rear end straight, all the way up the hill here. Instead of finding wood blocks for this and jacking it up, I'm going to try and be super duper clever and just use the leveling feet that's designed into the stand here. Spread the load a little bit as we do on concrete with these big washers. Give it some tension. Well, that was enough to lift the wheel. And we'll just strap it down 4 corners and see how it rides. I looked for a few minutes the other day for a 1 3/4 wrench and forgot that I'd made this one, so yeah, there you go. I'm looking forward to cleaning this thing up. It was pretty filthy, pretty rusty, still pretty filthy and pretty rusty. But I did wire brush the whole thing just quickly, and then spent more time here and used the Ospo stuff on it. And then over here I put a little bit of whey oil on it. I think it can get cleaner than this. It really exposes how abused this table has been. Like, there's definitely some rust here, and then where something was mounted to it, it's in pretty good shape. Same over here with where the vise was. Something's really been cranked down. You can feel that the metal is raised around that hole. But okay, it's a work table, it's not a surface plate. These are egregious grinding marks or cutting marks. It's just, you know, I didn't value the thing, and so it got abused. I got it free, and I'm going to give it a good home. This is super neat here. If you can make that out, February 9th, 1965, and then here, revised August 28th, 1967. I'm guessing this was a 2-head drill press arrangement. 1 head there, 1 head there in a production environment. There's still a bunch of these out there. I think, you know, once the drills died, the tables were useful. Sometimes you pay a mint for them, and then sometimes in this case you get them free. All right, we're going to chain this one up and run up the hill. When I put these wheels under here in the arrangement that I described earlier, with rigids on the rear and swivels on the front, I hooked up this chain so I could hoist it up with the cherry picker. Until I need that chain for something else, I figure I'll just leave it in place. It's pretty handy. There are 3/8 inch tapped holes in this thing already from whatever went there. So we just used that and it worked great. very good help today. Moral support mainly. Are you working hard today, buddy? Or not too concerned? This is the heaviest thing that we'll load. I've thrown some heavy things in it, and I intend to throw some more heavy things in there. I'm thinking this table will do a good job of holding these heavy vices and collet chucks. Maybe these big wrenches down here. So yeah, we'll get this thing on the trailer and then load it up. If you can't tell, it's hot today. It's just miserable. All right. We piled on a few more things, then made the trip north. The relief didn't last long because we accepted an offer on the house with a quick closing date just a couple of weeks away. Once more, we have an empty trailer, a hot day, and a clear objective. What doesn't go now gets left behind. Somewhere in all of this, we traded with a good friend for this rail buggy frame. We don't really have space for it, so we'll have to sell it quick or figure out how to add it to the load. We're pushing hard because this is how progress and good memories are made. Hey drivers, we have a big couple of days ahead of us here. We are making the very last load of stuff that's going up to the new shop. We need to load the trailer today. That means all of the stuff that's left in the garage has to be on that trailer by the end of the day. We'll drive it up to the new shop tomorrow, and then the following day we're gonna fly back down. We still have the RV here. I'm gonna leave the dogs here overnight. They're being taken care of, don't worry. And we have Dweezil here that will be towing behind the RV. So this trip is pretty big. It means there'll pretty much be nothing left here on the property. We'll be ready to close and drive away. That truck that you see through the window there has been absolutely amazing. We're just gonna ask this one more thing of it. The hard part is all of this has to go on to the trailer. We'll see. We're gonna be okay on weight, but space I'm not so sure. And then there's the random things. Like if I'm gonna take that with me, it has to be on the trailer. And if all of that isn't enough, let me show you one more thing. A good friend of mine gave me this buggy, which is awesome, but I'm kind of down to the last steps here, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get it up there. So it's been for sale on Marketplace. There is a guy that said he was going to come by and pick it up today, but we know how that goes. So as I start loading up the trailer, I got to be thinking I may need to somehow cram that buggy onto this 20-foot flatbed trailer along with a garage full of stuff. This is silly. These guys think we're going somewhere. Yeah, we're not going anywhere today, boys. We're not going anywhere. I've pulled the trailer a little bit further forward than usual, and I'm just going to use the ramps to make it down to the concrete. That way we can load stuff on without getting off of hard surfaces. This is what I'm thinking about. So I may need a little bit of space to maneuver the tail end of this buggy into there and get it up onto the trailer if that's what we need to do. Naturally, the first thing that needs to go on the trailer is in the very back. It's the air compressor. When I put this thing together, I had to keep in mind today. Now, I did this probably 15 years ago, but I was thinking about the day that I had to wheel it out of this garage in the case that I would move somewhere, as we are doing. And so I made it as tall as I could to still fit under the garage door. The only thing I need to do is pull this air filter off. Now we'll be able to fit. As you might guess, an air compressor like this, like the upright style, is really top heavy with that big electric motor up there and a cast iron pump. So it's going to really want to tip. We don't have that much of an incline, but I think it's going to look pretty spooky once this thing starts running up those ramps. So what I've arranged is kind of a safety. I hope that that chain going up to a high point here will serve to keep this thing from tipping backwards. I may need to make some adjustments. I don't know if my estimations were right, but let's give it a shot. Tightened up this one by a couple of links, but I'm also going to lower the incline. It's steeper here than it is across the rest of the deck, so I'm going to average those two by raising the tongue. So that flatten this out just a little bit, maybe all we need. Let's move cautiously forward here. Coming up this lip here is going to be the sketchiest part. It's definitely going to want to tip back. If I've figured out the physics right, that chain's going to make a difference, but it could still rotate, like the wheels could come out from underneath it, and it could rotate underneath that chain. This is sketchy. I'm going to think about it for a minute. Out of an abundance of caution and wishful thinking, equal parts, I'm giving it a couple of wheelie bars. The idea being that makes the base of it much longer and pretty much impossible to tip as long as those hold under whatever amount of force is applied to them. And unless they're on the ground, they're not inhibiting anything. So let's just go like an inch and see what everything looks like. Okay, we should be home free now. Glad to have that behind us. This, by the way, stay with me now, will be a fun project. I have two parts mowers that are in better shape than the real mower. I've been using this thing for 20 years, and it's fun. It's been a piece of junk the whole time, but it's just fun. I just, 2 or 3 times a year I have to do some welding to finish the lawn, and that's just fun. At any rate, I'd like to take this up. I have a nice mower up there, but for maybe cutting trails in the woods or something and mowing around the field, this might be the beast for us. So I don't know. We're going to see if we can take it with us. The engine stand can be disassembled, so we can reduce that quite a bit. This can be thrown on top of whatever. All the little stuff goes in all the nooks and crannies. This I keep using, but I would like to put it on the trailer now. I want to shrink wrap it, so I got a little bit of a problem there. Here's where I think we have a chance for heroics. if I stand the workbench on its end, like everything off of it, everything off the shelf, it can go on the runner, despite the fact that it will stick out by about 10 inches. Basically, it'll come out to the fender. That's my no-go point. I can't go any wider than the fender, so I think that's about where we'll be. We have definitely entered into Clampetts territory. These workbenches were one of the very first things that I built for the shop, probably 20 years ago. And this was an early TIG welding project, way too small of a welder, but made this mount for the vise, bolted it on, and it's been there ever since. So we're going to take the vise off for the first time in forever-ish. This was my dad's vise, and he told me if I could fix it, I could have it. And here we are. So this one's special. Not going to say it was easy, but we got it. Lines up with the fender. Heading to Beverly Hills. Okay, good news. The marketplace guy came by and bought the buggy. That would have been a cool project, but the real buggy project that I want to work on is Skimpy, which you may remember from some time ago. On our trip up tomorrow, we're going to stop by, if all things go well, and maybe pick up a couple of parts for Skimpy that will redefine the project in a pretty interesting direction. So, okay, we'll take the money from that and put it towards Skimpy, and all's well that ends well. Also means that we don't have to load the buggy. That was going to be a trick. All right, so now we're going to take the lawnmower and get it loaded. Here's something funny. Part of the design of these things is that you can tip it up on its back on these bumpers here and stand it straight up in the air, which is great because we're going to do that on the edge of the trailer, and that'll save us some space. I do need to take off my trailer hitch dealy-doo, but then we'll be in good shape. So we'll drive this up onto the trailer and then tip it up on its back and move on to the next thing. Things are getting kind of silly now. There's an amazing amount of stuff piled just in that space. I'll show you what I'm talking about. We have put a dent in the stuff in the garage. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm just pumping myself up. That's a lot. That's also a lot of heavy stuff. Still need to put the 3 engines on. They're gonna be space hogs. What we're doing now is changing our plan here. I'm running out of time. I have even less energy. So I think I'm gonna leave this together. We're gonna push it up on the trailer, turn it sideways to go across the back of all that stuff that's up there. And we'll load it up to maybe right here and shrink wrap the whole thing. This took care of a lot of stuff. Lots of strapping to do. And I'm running out of daylight. But we've accomplished a lot and we still have plenty of space back here. As promised, it is a huge mess. But we have a lot of garage in there. There's 3 engines, an air compressor, a welder, welding cart, 3 shelves, lots of steel, pallet jack, an engine hoist, a big industrial fan, and the hood ornament up there, obviously a wheelbarrow. Metal cart, stainless steel table, the engine test stand is underneath all of that, a bench grinder, a toolbox, like a big Kennedy toolbox, and another toolbox. Got 6 bins, 7 bins. This is ridiculous. Oh, and a workbench. All right, let's get on the road. We got a long ways to go, and we're going to look at some VW parts. It's the next day. We made the trip fine, but there was a little bit of excitement when I got to the guy's house that I was looking at the VW parts, all that, right? This one had a nail in it, so what you're actually looking at is the spare. Super nice guy, helped me change the tire right there, and gave me a good deal on this. So what you're looking at is reduction gearboxes from an early Splitty, as far as I can tell so far, maybe 59-ish, 60-ish, somewhere in there. It's what we call a small nut transaxle. And then the rear frame section from a Splitty. So the idea here is that this becomes the rear end for Skimpy. And of course the reduction gearboxes will wind up the engine, but I only expect to go slow anyway. And it gives us a little bit more ground clearance. So, okay, we've just kicked up the Skimpy project a little bit by hopefully giving it a Splitty bus rear end instead of a Beetle rear end. Have everything tarped. It's gonna have to hang out for a week. I'm actually about to jump on a plane and go back down to Central Florida. The dogs are being taken care of by a neighbor, the Mosey home, and Dweezil all need to be picked up. So we're gonna go back down there, close on the house, jump in the RV, and go on a pretty cool trip. A couple of 3 days probably of just like taking a breath in between big stages of life, and then being ready when we get up here to hit the ground running. So catch us in the next video when we'll be on a road trip in the Mosey home to our new life right back here.